Now we're on, buddy. Kevin Petersen, Thursday night or Thursday afternoon, wherever you are, maybe Thursday morning. Family Matters with Kevin Petersen. How are you, Kevin?
I'm I'm fighting whatever is going around is how I am, to be honest. the the
Well,
cough, head, cold.
I just got done with a beautiful conference in your home state of Colorado or home
Yeah,
whatever, and so
second
I
home.
always kind
Mm.
of I always get a little icky after a conference because God knows what's all going around, handshaking, and
Ugh.
a lot of people in close spaces. So
Yep.
the day after, I always kind of just feel a little icky, but nonetheless, Family Matters goes on. So we'll power through it.
All right, let's
So
go. Hit it up. Tee it up. What you got?
well,
I'm ready.
we answer questions. We took a couple of weeks off, I think 1 or 2 weeks off, but
Yep.
sickness is hitting us hard. But you can ask a question live if you're watching a replay. You can always type in a question below, and we will get to it the following week. We love hearing the questions, and there are no stupid questions. I still get a lot of, like, this is probably a stupid question, but just
No.
so you know, they'll
No.
probably keep typing it, but there's no stupid questions. So,
No.
alrighty. How do we stop? How do we stop feeling like we're living on the edge of a breakdown every day? Our son is all over the place and doesn't appear wants to get sober.
That's a great question. And I think so. This is why the theory that I have is that, focusing on your son and trying to fix your son is, to me, kind of the backwards way of going about it, right? So what I would do is, within the structure of the parents and the family, set some new rules and some new boundaries and just be like, look, here's the deal. If you're going to choose that lifestyle, that's your choice. I mean, there's two concepts here: one over 18, one under 18. Okay. You're over 18, or let's say over whatever, legally, you can choose that lifestyle. We're going to choose not to participate with that. And that means we're not going to fund you. You can't live here. If you're going to live like that, you're going to have to figure that stuff out all by yourself. We're not going to enable that. We're not going to support that. And if they're under 18 or in a position where you have sort of a lot of leverage over them, you can say, so here's the deal. If you're going to continue to participate in the drug and the alcohol lifestyle, and then you're going to go to treatment because we have that kind of power over you. And we're going to bring in someone who's going to help make that decision. And, we'll give you a chance to get it together. We'll give you a chance to get sober and to try and to engage. But if you don't do it, then we're going to plan B. It's just that simple. And that way you're protecting the family. And to me, that's the most important thing, right? Is the family standing up for itself and saying, we love you, but we're not doing this anymore. If you want to continue to do it, that's you. That's your choice. But we're going to choose to not do this anymore. And if you want help, we will always help you. And we already have a plan. But if you don't, we can't stop you. You're an adult. You're 25, 30, 35, 40. That's on you. But you're going to do it without our participation. And, you and I both know that that's what worked for us. When I look at the people that have long-term sobriety, that's what worked for them. Was their families or their people around them or whoever it was drawing a hard line and saying, that's it. That's it. And when you're ready to accept help, we're ready. Yeah, that's really the answer.
I like it. Yeah.
So sorry to answer. So how does that make them get off the living on eggshells? Well, because you've made a decision and you're holding, and you're going to be like, and now we're going to take care of ourselves. We're going to go to therapy. Maybe we're going to try some 12-step meetings. We're going to dig into taking care. We're going to address our issues. You're not going to be the center of attention anymore. We're going to actually put ourselves first. and see how that goes and see where that takes us. So there you go.
What, I mean, just a side question. I mean, off the top of my head, like a great
Yeah.
interviewer I am, but I mean, uh, I'm sure you have ideas. I mean, seeing that, you oversee a family program at a facility, a well-respected facility, but what, I mean, I think I'll just put it in general terms. What can we do better, either at, anyone, whether facility or individuals within this behavioral health industry? What can we do better, would you think, to help educate and, well, let's just educate, support families?
Yeah. Well, there's not that many people that
I mean,
specialize
I
in
think we
the.
can do more.
Yeah. Oh, I do too. I mean, oh my God. I mean, there's not that many people that specialize in working with families that are struggling with addiction. I mean, people that I think of like are myself, Dr. Michael Barnes, Jill Krush. I'm sure there's others that I'm just not thinking of. A buddy of mine, Lane Rust. That's their whole thing is teaching families, hey, it's not just here's a copy of Codependent No More. Go to Al-Anon. We'll see you in 30 days. That's the old method. The new method is having someone like me, like a jaywalker, someone like me that works just with the family and really engages into the family and says, "Hey, let's change the way you guys are behaving, because if your loved one sees that there's a new system, and that's going to force them to adapt to the system." And that is the big piece. And I wish more schools would teach that kind of concept of how to work with a family that's struggling with substance abuse or severe mental health. Because it's very similar. How do you address that? How do you go about that? And that's just not something. I mean, so I can tell you, as my colleagues, they look at me like, I can't believe I mean, when I was getting my degree, my LMFT, they're like, why do you want to work with families? Oh my God, they're so complicated. There's so many people in the room. There's so much going on. And I'm like, I like that. And then that evolved into families that are struggling with addiction. And then my colleagues are like, what are you crazy? The, you got the family and you got addiction. It's like, this is crazy, crazy. I'm like, right. Well, it's where I come from. Yeah, that's my world. But to me, these families are desperate for help, and they don't know what to do. And they need someone to give them a plan of action on how to address the crisis and then how to address themselves. And does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
So to me, within the struggle, within your question of how can we do a better job as addiction or industry people or whatever, the response would be, start seeing the family as the client, not the individual. The individual is part of the family, and the family is struggling with substance abuse or mental health or both. So let's address that from that perspective, not, ooh, we're going to take this thing and we're going to put it over here for X amount of time. And then we're going to do what we can with it. And then we're going to bring it back and then expect everything to be all better. That just doesn't make any sense, And I think that's what really has to be addressed. That's what we have to do differently.
Yeah. Well, I see it. I saw it even at the conference. I had a conversation, and and I didn't want to like start a fight or anything like that. But I mean, it hit a chord to me because we were sitting in a small group like these conferences, and someone was sharing about a client that's doing well, but they work for a residential place, and they ultimately said that I just wish the family would get involved. They don't want anything to do with it, and they've made it perfectly clear they don't want to, other than updates, they don't want to do any kind of family work. And this person at the facility that worked at the facility, uh, uh, abiding by that rule? Like, are they just keeping, mom and dad, or are they educating? And so I think, and I don't want to make a blanket statement, but I see it enough, I hear it enough that
Hmm.
it's almost as if the family has this option whether or not they want to involve themselves within the family program.
Right.
And treatment facilities are all right with this.
Yeah. Well, it makes things. I mean, it's less work for them. I wouldn't say it makes things easier. You know, I think it's critical that the treatment center starts doing a different approach. I mean, that's you know, a year ago when I was talking to the guys at Jaywalker about, hey, I have this crazy idea. Tell me what you think. And they were like, we think that's great, and we think that would actually create better longevity and better results, and it has, you know. And so that to me is, the primary concept of, well, let's take it to the next level. Let's push this. Let's tell the family, hey, when you come here, when you bring your person here, you're not just dropping them off at, like, and then like you're going to Costco to get a new TV. You're going to participate in the process as well. And and when that expectation is put there, and when somebody reaches out to them and says, "Hi, I'm the family director. I'm here to help you with this," and they're like, "Oh," and then they, I mean, this happens. Don't get me wrong. This certainly happens a couple of times. I meet with the families a couple of times, and they're like, "So tell us about our kid." And I'm like, "Well, we're going to spend this much time talking about your kid. We need to talk about you and have you done the homework." And they're like, "Oh, well, we're so busy. We have so much work going on. You don't understand." And I'm like, right, let me ask you something. How would you feel if I called you and said, when we try to get your kid to engage in the process that we got here, he's like, yeah, I'm just not interested. How would you feel about that? You'd be pissed. And they're like, yeah. It's like, well, same thing. Same thing. It's gotta work both ways. If we heal the family system, think about it. If you have a company, right, that's struggling or having issues, or you got the company that's got a high turnover rate or has employee issues, you know, it's always easy to look at the employee and go, that guy, he's a screw up. How did he get through our problem? He's an idiot. We got to get rid of him. And then the next guy, and then the next guy, and the next guy, as opposed to saying, huh, I think we need to take a look at what's going on here. We seem to be, generating people that are struggling, so we need to help them. And so I think it's behooving to the industry and to the schools and to the concept of, what is treatment? Is treatment just about healing the individual? No. Treatment is about healing the family system, and that's where you can have the best success. And I'll get off my soapbox. Yeah.
It's, please do. I mean, stay up there. We got other questions. I mean, so
Yeah.
there's
What do you got?
another question which I think is interesting is, I mean, basically the headline is, Kevin, what is, or I added the Kevin, but what is my
It's okay.
role? He said, this is, so a sister of someone that's going through the process. She doesn't really say where they are within the process, but I would assume maybe treatment or whatever, early recovery or something. And she says, I watch your show every so often, which, come on, you should be doing it every week. Let's just be honest. But
At least
you guys
somebody's
talk a lot
watching.
about mom and dads, and, moms and dads, what as the sister is my role and how do I support? And she's honest in saying, I don't want anything to do with my brother. He's burnt every bridge in, basically, but it sounds like she's open if it's a different approach. What is the role of, said aunts, uncles, brothers, sisters, whatever it may be?
Yeah, no, I'm all for the extended family, and it's the same thing. Go to the meetings, get educated, do your own therapy, take a look at your own stuff. Because here's what's going to happen when you do that as a sibling, or whatever, I mean, extended family member, not mom and dad, whatever. Um, you're going to change the system by changing your behavior. When you can go back to this person, back to the family system and say, oh, I'm sorry, I'm not tolerating this behavior anymore. Oh, we're going to act like we don't see him doing drugs and drinking and disrupting the system and stealing. And we're not, okay, then you know what? when you guys are ready to address this, let me know. But until then, I'm out. I'm not going to participate in this and act like it's, not happening, because that's just enabling the family system and the individual. And so it's really about you taking good care of yourself and learning to speak up, right? And I mean, that's the most important thing for someone like that, is be the person that speaks up and says, this is wrong. I don't, this is crazy. He's killing himself, and we're all acting like it's no big deal, you know? And that's the most important thing that
Yeah.
a family member can do, is speak up and say, hey, this isn't working. This is, I love you guys, but this is crazy. So that's critical. It's critical to have that person that's opening their mouth and saying, the emperor's not wearing any clothes, you know, and
Yeah.
we got to talk about that.
Well, as the story goes, I can just, from my personal family experience and so forth like that, and I hear it all the time doing the work that I do and working with families and intervening and so forth like that. There's often, I won't say all the time, some deep-seated resentments as to, I'll just say, I was unaware. I knew that I was in active addiction. I knew I was destroying my life. I knew I was driving mom and dad crazy, and they didn't know how to handle me or something like that. It was interesting when I first heard from my brothers within a family program, and they were saying like, uh, you know, I don't necessarily resent Jay for everything. I'm resenting the fact that I got overlooked a lot within this family. And mom and dad, you obviously, Jay deserved a lot, but I think you went above and beyond what you needed to do. And you're like, hey, what about us? And so that was my family story that I've seen translate to several other families. You just the overlooking because Johnny is constantly always in active addiction and getting in trouble.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Speak up. Say, hey, this is nuts. My sister always said, it didn't matter if it was good, bad, or indifferent. It was just always all about you. And she's like, that got to be too much for me. And I totally
Yeah.
got it. I mean, she's like, it didn't matter. Good day, bad day, or whatever day, it was always Kevin, Kevin, Kevin. And I'm like, yeah, no, I totally get it. You were 100% right. And she's like, but she's like, she's also gotten to the point where she's like, and I can see where that was mom and dad. You know,
Yeah.
they needed to be like, well, whatever. You know, that's not my. You're not gonna be the center of attention 24/7.
Yeah.
But that now we're talking about
Yeah.
systemic change. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah. I mean, why won't they stop? Don't they see how much they're hurting us? I mean, along the same lines and so forth like that.
Yeah,
A huge breakthrough that I went through just in my own recovery is, I got steps and I got to clean my side of the street. And, the interesting thing was family members of mine cleaning their side of the street and holding me accountable and start dealing with the resentments that they had from growing up with a son in addiction, a brother in addiction and stuff. There's some deep-seated resentments that I'm glad, my mom and dad, other people said like, hey, like, we're glad you're sober, but let's sit down and talk further about some deep-seated resentments that I've been holding against you for a while. And once you get that out, my family's dynamics and the communication in a sense change completely when we start letting go of these resentments and so forth.
yeah, yeah. Again, and we're back to talking about the family doing their own individual work and healing the family system, which will eventually heal the individual. It doesn't work the other way around, you know. So, yeah.
Yeah.
How
Well,
about that?
it's the age old, like you get people to go to Al-Anon or anything. Like my brother's first response was, why do I need to go somewhere and talk about my brother Jay, who's an addict alcoholic? And thank God we had a family therapist at my last place say, like, actually, that's missing the mark. Like, we're not going to talk about Jay. You need to stop talking about Jay. You need to go to these fellowships and get in your own work on yourself, and not bring Jay into this and do your own work. So,
Right. Absolutely. And start addressing, why are you not saying anything? And I mean, that's That's the big deal, right? That's the most important part. So yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think we powered through it, both feeling a little under the weather, but I think this was a good show.
Yeah, it's great. I love the topics. I love the questions. I mean, this is the core root of everything, and is that if the family system changes, the individuals will change as well. You know, it's really hard to have an individual change and then try to have that thrown back into the family system. It's so difficult. So yeah.
Well, I mean, I had a conversation with a family just about, they're calling to intervene on their son, and
Hmm.
everyone wants to talk about success rates and how can we set up. The question was, how can we set up, you know, for our son to have the best success? Was it staying longer than
Hmm.
30 days or something? And those are all check boxes. But I also said, a great way to improve odds is for you guys as a family to start doing your own work and change that dynamics. So he's at least coming back to a different family dynamic, enabling codependency, all the things that we throw into this pot. But if you guys start changing, the addict alcoholic is forced to change nonetheless, like either get better or get, continue to get
Or
worse. But if the family
well,
change, success goes
yeah,
up.
yeah, get better, or you're going to be on the outside looking in, and there's nothing worse. I mean, that's the thing. Yeah. Cool.
There's nothing worse than knowing that my family is or someone's talking about me and I'm not involved with that discussion. So that drives me nuts. So,
Well, because that's all there
all
is to
right.
talk about.
I wasn't going to say it, but I mean, I'm kind of a big deal, Kevin. I don't know if you
Well,
realize that, but
I'm always,
everyone should be talking about me.
I've always thought so. I've always thought so. All right, buddy.
All right, we'll do this again next week, Kevin.
I look forward to it, my brother.
Bye bye.